and welcome to Conversations with me, your host Sarahina Mayoyo, a space that we've opened for women to be themselves, talk about themselves, and also find solutions to their problems. Now, pain travels through family lines until someone decides to heal it in themselves. By taking the agony of going through healing, you no longer pass the poison to the next generations. That is a very important journey to take, and I think especially for women, because we've got wombs where we actually pass through things to our children.
Imagination is everything. All life is an experiment. What a caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls it the butterfly.
The part I love in that quote is when it says, what the caterpillar sees as the end of the world, the master sees as the beginning of a butterfly, which gives me hope that no matter how dire the situation, there's still a silver lining at the end. But let me not get too excited. Let me welcome my co-host who's going to help me unpack this topic. Don't go anywhere. I feel like saying welcome home because you are always here. So welcome. Please give us an intro into who you are.
Thank you so much. I feel like I'm home.
Yeah.
Because I'm always here. Good day, everyone. My name is Matseho Njumbuka, and I'm a very good friend of Sarahina, and I'm very excited to be here today, my friend. Thank you very much for inviting me again. I'm looking forward to dissecting this topic
For today. And I'm not sure if you know what we're talking about today.
No, I want to be surprised.
Okay. So the topic says it ends with you.
Okay.
But I think I need to give it a bit more meat because what ends? And what is this it? We're talking about generational habits and the negative ones. The negative generational habits that, we pick up and we sort of give over to the next generation. And as I started even, this show today, I spoke about how, it's important for us to make a decision because we find ourselves indirectly passing through poison to the next generation, sometimes without even knowing, because of these generational habits that we carry. So that's what we're talking about. And I actually wanna ask you what your thinking is around generational habits. And I've actually termed it generational habits on purpose because we usually talk about generational curses. I'm speaking generational habits. What's your thinking around that?
That's a deep one. That's a very deep one, and it's deep in the sense that it's something that I've been exposed to.
Okay.
Or it's a topic that I've had my mind picked on, or I've picked people's minds on. And for me, it became an issue, or it became a big thing when I actually had my first child, because I became aware of whatever it is that I was passing on, or whatever it is that was in my bloodline, and whatever it is that she would actually eventually, and on top of everything, whatever it is that's going to be coming from her father's side.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with my daughter, I did not know much about the father's side, and it became an issue. That's how I decided to do research on it.
Okay.
Because I needed to understand how is she gonna be impacted. You know how we always say, like a certain personality trait.
Yeah.
City.
She's just like the uncle.
She's just like, I unfortunately did not have that much for her.
Okay.
So for me, I needed to understand, I needed to know how it would affect her in the long run.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I didn't, because there are not a lot of people who talk about it, and the net doesn't give you much.
Yeah.
So I'm actually very excited that we're going to be talking about this.
And have you heard how natural, or let me say normal, we've made it?
Yes.
It's like it runs in the family.
Yes.
We've actually made that term so normal. So as if we are excusing it. No. Don't worry about it. It runs in the family.
Yeah.
Her grandmother used to do this. Even her great-grandmother actually, remember her great-grandmother. So don't worry, it runs in the family. So we've actually, accepted it as normal.
As a norm.
And it shouldn't be. So now especially when it's negative.
Yes.
And that's
the
what
negative ones shouldn't be.
And that's what we are actually focusing on today, to say the negative ones. And also, our highlight is it ends with you, right? But I want to actually bring in an example for me of something very trivial. So I don't want to go deep.
Yeah.
Moles. Moles?
Yeah.
Now, my grandmother was like a mole factory. She had moles coming out of places that I don't think moles should be coming out of. And then my mother, when my mother was a bit younger, she didn't have many. Yay, when she grew up, this woman, I can see there's like bits and pieces of moles. So now I was worried and I was like, And my mother's sister also. So I was like, no.
So it's coming to you.
I can't. And then the family, people in the family will be like, you know what? Accept it.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. Do you know that I actually stood up and said, in Jesus' name, it is not coming to me. I don't care if it's medical. But I know it's a dramatic example, but that's what we're talking about, to say that you need to be so vigorous about
and so intentional
about saying, I know it runs in the family. I know this is how things have been done in this family, but it ends with me. Now, when we're talking about women, I'd like to pick on topics that, speak to women in terms of generational curses, right? And there's one that always comes up, even in sessions with women. And it's the one that speaks to, it's either you'll hear, Uguti, all the women in this family divorce. Or all the women in this family give birth to drunkard firstborns. Something along those lines. And you find that even before somebody has given birth, they are already prepared for the drunkard. Even before someone is even in a relationship, they are prepared for a divorce. So before a person even steps into the scene, they've already got contingency plans for the worst. And I mean, what's your take on that? And have you also perhaps experienced that?
I actually have, because I remember, and it's so funny because I don't think it had a spiritual effect or a biblical effect on this particular case that I'm going to use, and that's my mother.
Okay.
I remember my mother used to say, my dad was an alcoholic.
Okay.
Right. So when we were growing up, she used to say to us all the time, guys, don't even touch alcohol because it's generic. I mean, it's also scientific.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
She'd say alcoholism is generic. Your father had it, which means inevitably you guys will if you even touch alcohol, you will be alcoholics. And we used to laugh.
And
we used to laugh at her and think, oh, wow, you are so dramatic. But, no one is an alcoholic within
the children.
That generation.
Yeah.
And I would think it's because she probably prayed it away, But that's how far deeply it goes, runs, for women as well. And like I was saying to you, for me, it became a thing that was, I had to be very intentional about what I let go to my daughter.
With your daughter.
The same way my mom was.
Yeah.
So I don't have I can't think of anything in my family that has been a generational thing, or except for the alcoholism thing.
Yeah.
Actually, because even my dad's brothers, some of them died because of alcohol-related issues. So it's something that is there in the bloodline.
Sure.
But I think in terms of now the generation that we're in, it hasn't affected
perhaps
us much.
There's an awareness.
There is an awareness. So now people are intentionally praying for it.
Okay, so people are intentionally saying it's not going to continue. And I love the fact that you are bringing your daughter in to say that I'm not going to pass certain things over. So you are actually aware of it, because we started talking about, as women as well, we have the power to actually give, and pass things through. So, we have to go to a quick break, but I'd like us to continue on that note when we come back. So stay tuned. I want to encourage every woman to own their story. And when I say own their story, I mean everything. The good, the ugly, the bad. Also the stretch marks, the glow, and everything in between. So let's chat on Chatting with Sarahina. This show is about connecting you to your journey to validate your walk. Also, what it's about is a non-judgmental space where women can come together and speak about their issues. It also is for every woman. And when I say every woman, I mean all of us. So join us so that we can listen to each other's stories and actually help one another. Welcome back, and you're still watching Chatting with Sarahina. And before the break, we were talking about, generational habits that we see and we pick up, and things that are normal in our families, even terms that say it runs in the family, so don't worry about it. But we are actually looking at how it can end with you, right? And before the break, I wanted to share this with you. There's actually a young boy that I know of who was born of a mother who would drink alcohol a lot when she was pregnant. This child used to sweat like nobody's business. Like, this child used to sweat uncontrollably. And when the child started being able to move around, and there was alcohol everywhere anyway. There were bottles lying there, little pieces there. This child would go and it's as if the child could smell it. And the child would drink it.
A familiar smell.
To the point where the child now didn't want milk, like bottle milk. The child didn't want the milk. And the child would cry and throw toys. But that child would be so peaceful when he's had a little piece of that alcohol. This speaks to us. And I think I want to go deeper in this part of us being able to pass things over, because what I said when we started is pain. It could not be pain. It could be something else. But pain, runs through family lines until somebody decides. Somebody decides, Now, if you're not going to decide, you continue the poison to the next generation, because if you're not going to say it ends with me, and you are going to just be blasé and say, well, it runs in my family. You guys know my dad. You know my dad drinks. So obviously, And for me, I think we can't afford to be blasé. We can't afford to be blasé about it and say, no, man, I mean, this is where I come from, right? Yeah. And for me as well, I come from the Xhosa background. I'm Mpondo. And Pondos are known for being hot-headed. And, we call it Puma Silwe. Touch is a move. We go to fight now. We ask questions later. Yeah. And for me, growing up, I used to use it as an excuse as well. When I've beaten people up, I'll be like, guys, I mean, I know. I mean, you guys know. You touch me, you know.
You know what's going to happen.
But it had to get to a point where I'm so aware of it and I'm intentional about it. And I was like, no, I don't want this for myself. And then I looked at my daughter. She's nothing like that character. And I was like, I don't ever want it. I don't even want a piece of it going to this child, So I think I want us to expand on that, the selfishness sometimes that we have to say that, guys, I mean, deal, this is where I come from, understand that I get angry like that and I lose logic when I get angry. So, I mean, take it, because that's just who I am.
It's truly unfortunate, and it's something that I want us to highlight, that it's not necessarily bad things only that go through the bloodline, but the ones that are highlighted are the bad ones.
And that's why I actually emphasized when we started to say that we're looking at the negative side, because obviously the good ones, let's grow those. But the negative ones, because they go unnoticed,
But do they though? Do they go unnoticed? Because if you think about it, for me, for as long as I've known you, I've known you as the hot-headed person.
Yeah.
For as long as I've known you as the person who will stand and fight for a person. Like, for instance, I'm not a fighter. I'm quite meek. But if it comes to me, if anyone touched me, that was it. You would get into that fight. That's how I've always known you. And for me, that was the main characteristic of what made Sarahina, as far as I was concerned. You were always the leader. You were always the pusher. You were always the fighter.
Yeah.
And I never actually saw it as a bad thing.
I mean, here's where it was bad, because, and also a person can't understand it fully until you trace it back and see how actually evil where it comes from. how evil it is and how evil it can actually end up for this person. Remember how I used to see red, which meant that
Instantly.
I used to have an attitude that said, we'll both go to the grave.
Yes.
Now, that's not something...
Well, that's not good.
You
That's
understand
good.
what I'm saying? Maybe when you didn't see it that deep, but I got to a point where I realized, and when I started hearing about my great-grand uncles, my great-grand parents, I started realizing that this thing is hectic. If I don't stop this, I'm going to be that person who's got scratches all over, number one, who's always, known for fighting, and also who doesn't have a future because you always, fighting, even in relationships. So I think it's a beautiful point that you're bringing to say that perhaps the reason why they go unnoticed is because
they're part of your character traits.
they're part of your character trait and other people see it as a good part. Because for you, it was positive. It worked for you because I was able to fight for you, right?
Always did.
But it wasn't good for me. And also, now I didn't want to see my child follow that. I didn't want to see my daughter now become the fight, outside. So that's what I think I'm talking to as well, to say that we need to be aware of them and look at them objectively as well,
Yes,
right?
yes. I think it goes back to something else that we touched on earlier, self-awareness,
Yeah.
right? And unfortunately, I'm going to go back to the point of saying that, there's good and there's bad,
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But now being able to dissect the bad from your personality and being able to say, okay, this is actually, you touch on a very pertinent point where you say you had to literally sit down and trace back.
Nice.
When you were able to understand that it's actually not something that starts with you and it's not a character trait, but instead it's in the bloodline,
Yeah.
and it's working negatively.
Yeah.
So I think it goes back to that self-awareness and self-actualization,
Like
being
that.
able to look yourself in the mirror and say,
Yeah.
you know what, this is good and this is bad. Don't just say, you know what, it's who I am.
Yeah.
You have to understand, Indobana, not only is it who you are, it's in your bloodline, but it can be removed.
I like that. I like that because what it actually is saying is take a magnifying glass to yourself, look at yourself and, even be able to take the traits that you have, put them on somebody else and see if you'll still like them.
That is power.
Right?
That's
Take
powerful.
the traits
That's
because
powerful.
you are able to be gracious to yourself because it's you. But take the same traits that you have, put them on somebody else, look
And
at
see
that
if you'll still
person
like them.
and see if you'll still accept it and say, no, man, it's just how they are. It runs in the family. And if you don't like them, then come back to you and say, I don't like your traits, Sarahina.
Sure.
Can we do something about this? We need to take another quick break. So after the break, we'll continue. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and Matsogo and I are still talking about this hot topic, generational habits and how to break them and how it can end with you, right? And I think I wanted to come back to you so that I don't hog this.
Yes, don't hog
because
the
I'm
conversation.
excited. I'm excited.
Yes.
So
No, I understand, and I feel like you probably have some of the answers to the questions that I've always had.
Hopefully.
And one of them is that as women, we're carriers, right? And I almost feel like the strong traits or the strong negative traits come from the father side.
Ooh.
Right? Because, like, for instance, you mentioned your hot-headedness come
Hot-headedness.
from the father side. The ones that I can think of from my
Yeah.
side definitely come from I actually can't even think from the mother side
Sure.
what I took. But all the negative traits, I can actually think that they come from the father's bloodline. If I look at my cousins, if I look at my uncles and all of that, some of the things that I frowned upon,
Yeah,
in
are
the
coming
community come from that side.
yeah.
Is there something there?
Is it a thing that it comes from the father's side?
Yes,
I
is
think
it?
I think that question speaks then to identity.
Yes.
Ukuthi, where do we get the strong part of our identity? Perhaps let me not even go to identity. Our belonging. Where do we get the strong part of our belonging in terms of family attachment? And I mean, to be honest, the seed comes from the dad.
From the dad.
You know,
It comes from the dad.
the mother is the housing, you know, but that seed was dropped in there. Yes, it touched, you know, with the egg, but the essence of this whole entire thing is through the seed and that passes through. So I feel, I don't know, I'm not saying this is the answer, but this is what I'm thinking, is that because most of our identity in terms of family comes from the father's, you know, bloodline. When we talk about isduko, what are isduko?
Yes.
In
Clan names.
clan names.
Yeah.
We take our father's clan names,
Yes.
and then we
Yes.
go to his father's clan names,
And then his
the father's
father's.
clan names, surnames.
Yes, we take our father's surnames. And it goes back to what we always say, that you need to be so before you actually even get to a point where you are making children with someone, you need to kind of understand where they are coming from.
Yo,
Think about it. I go back to my daughter, amazing little person.
yeah,
But when I think about it, when it comes to her father's side of things, I don't quite understand. The only
Yeah.
reference point I have
Is
is
the
the father, you know. And and that's why for me it was very important for me to only speak amazing things on her life,
Yeah.
because I did not know what was.
What
I'm not
else?
know what is following her. I don't know what is coming. It's from my side. I know all the things that come from my side.
Yes,
But from her side, and the side that I feel is strong, is going to govern where she goes.
exactly.
That is a problem for me. How do we deal with that?
I think as women, because we, you know, our focus is on women here, as much as I think this topic is so
manly.
grounded in terms of the male species. But as women now, when we find ourselves in the position, you know, of having the expose now, and we can see through ourselves, and we see some of the bad traits that we carry, you know, I think the first thing is for us to stop running away from them.
Yeah.
Ne?
Yeah.
I think it's time for us to stop running away from them or wishing them away. Wishing them away. So wishing those bad traits away. I think it's time for us to intentionally bring them up.
Yeah.
Bring them
We
up
can
and say
deal with
that
them.
I see you in me. Remember the magnifying glass? I see you in me and you are not good for me. But then before I even deal with you, I don't have a full understanding of who you are. Where do you come from?
Yeah.
You trace where that
Yeah.
thing comes from. So
Yeah.
if it's alcoholism, I can't have been born as a little baby and be an alcoholic by just liking alcohol.
course.
Where do you come from? So we actually treat these things like demons and ask them the questions, where do you come from? And then we do the research
Go back
to
where
go
you
and
come
find where it comes from, because before we are able to even cut it, where are you cutting? You know,
Exactly.
where are you cutting? What are you cutting? From whom are you cutting it? You know, so you need to know where it comes from and understand, you know, the journey of how it got to you. And then you are able to say, okay, I'm not aligning to this. Because some of these traits, it's as if it's a belonging thing.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't have this trait, you don't belong to this family. Did you understand that?
Yes,
Ukuthi sometimes your
yes.
siblings even will hate you because when
You
oh,
don't
when
have-
ucinga ungcono, you think you're better than us because you're going to think you're not going to have moles when we do. You think you are better than us. So it speaks to us now standing up for ourselves and our decisions and saying that, you know what, if it means that I'm losing a family over this, I'm losing a family, but this is not good for me. And I am not accepting it and receiving it as part of who I am going forward.
Yeah.
So I'm cutting this thing. If any of you don't want to cut it, that's fine.
That's
I'm
okay.
not
That's on
cutting.
you.
I'm not cutting the family bond, but I'm cutting this thing that is not good for me, because also I'm not allowing it to continue through history after me. It has to end here.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, I was told that my grandmother had my mother when she was 18. And then my mother had me when she was 18.
Yes.
My 18th year, I think, was the scariest
For everyone.
year for everybody because she's gonna get pregnant, right? And shame for them, pregnancy was not even something, you know, in my mind, because I had real issues to deal with. But I think, you know, I mentioned this because there was a pastor who was very close to me, and I talk about him in my book. He spoke words, and for me, those words were coming not from the pastor, but from a higher power, because he says to me, and he doesn't know this truth. He says, whatever has been, and it was on my 18th year, he says, whatever has been chasing, you, and whatever, generational things that you come from, they end with you. He spoke those words. We were in the car, and he said those things, and I was like, well, where's this coming from? And I didn't even know where it was coming from until later, when I realized that there are so many things that come from, that are generational in my life, that even he spoke to without understanding, that they end with you. But what he did is, it's as if he charged me to be intentional, to say that they are all going to end with me.
It's not going to go to the
They're
next generation.
all going to end with me. I'm the grave to these generational things. I am their grave. They end here, right? And I think that's where we need to start, by being intentional, but I think also by being bold. I think we need to stop this thing of always being victims of circumstances as women. We approach everything like
from a
we are so weak,
mentality.
from a weakling position. If we knew our power, if we knew how these evil things fear us, we would not be as scared, when a woman puts their foot down, they say even the devil is like, oh, she's up, but we need to put our foot down. There's no formula to it. There's also no pixie dust to it.
Dude.
There's no abracadabra. You have to get up and be like,
about it. You have to be intentional.
It ends with me.
You have to be intentional.
So I want to, you can see I'm excited about this. So I've been talking about it. I want to hear your last thoughts, on this topic.
I think it's, and I would love for girls who haven't even maybe had any children to hear this and listen carefully. When first of all, like I said earlier on, if there's an opportunity to get to know the person that you want to have children with, get to know their family, get to know where they come from, get to know what makes the family tick, and also obviously the bad things in their family, because they will affect the next generation, which is brought through by you. You're the gate that brings the next generation. Secondly, speak life and rebuke death on your womb and on your children when you're carrying that seed. Speak life and remove and speak or rebuke everything negative that might be following that fetus, that might be following that child, and trust God to make sure that generational curses will end at that point in time.
Powerful. Nothing to add. Thank you so much for those words. And thank you yet again for being on our show.
By all means. All the time. Thank you.
Sure. What a topic. What a deep topic. Generational habits, generational patterns. And I think for us women, I'd like to end on this note. It's important for us to watch and focus on those seeds, because it's those seeds that pass through the generations. Well, the first seed you need to look at right now is the seed that produced you, because that seed speaks to the seed you carry and you pass through to the next generation. So it's important for you to look at yourself, be real with yourself, pick those things that you don't like, that you wouldn't like to see in your child, trace where they come from and deal with them, so that what you give to your child is something new and fresh. We have the power to actually change the narrative of our families if we decide to. It can really end with us. So when they say to you, man, it runs in the family, tell them this is the time it runs out.